Welcome back to Biz Audio, everyone. And it's been a crazy week in the radio and audio industry. And I've got Peter Samios here to break it down with me. Welcome back to Biz Audio, Peter.
Max, what an absolute pleasure. I feel so honored that you've reached out to have me to discuss this. It has been a crazy week. I don't think anyone, not just the Australian radio industry, I think around the world, to watch this drama unfold on such a public stage. Can I use the word of the year from 2020? Unprecedented is what it is. So no, it's amazing. Not amazing, sorry, but it is unprecedented. I've never would have seen this coming in a million years.
Absolutely. And of course, for those who are just catching up on it now, last night, Jackie O did release a statement saying, I want to make one important point very clear. I did not quit or resign. So that sort of throws all our predictions out of the window. Of course, ARN also did release their statement earlier this week saying Miss Jacqueline Henderson has given notice she cannot continue to work with Mr. Sanderland. So, look, I want to chat about a few things, but what do you think how do you think this impacts the Sydney ratings? Of course, Survey 1 just wrapped up a week ago and Survey 2 has just gone underway. Do you think this will have major impacts?
Well, firstly, let me start by saying, wow, like this story has had more chops and changes than Today FM breakfast. So, but we should put a disclaimer. By the time you're listening to this podcast, I guarantee it'll be outdated. There's definitely more to the story, and it's really unfortunate. I think a lot of the commentators have nailed it that it is now a matter of the legals, for the legal powers to handle it. So, we do need to respect that it's likely going to be a legal matter about that. But look, in terms of the Sydney ratings, there's no doubt Kiss Sydney breakfast ratings will drop. Actually, in my opinion, this is a moment that many in the Sydney radio industry have been waiting for. The removal of Carl and Jackie O from the Sydney radio market. It'll see a more level, more even playing field in Sydney radio that we haven't seen this for the best part of 25 years or so. So, I mean, that means even for someone like you, Max, you've never seen the Sydney radio market without K&J. So many people listening, their listening patterns have been completely messed up as a result of them no longer being on air. In my opinion, it's the first time or it is time for other stations to power up. I can see what Triple M, and I love what Triple M Sydney are doing. They're being a bit cheeky with their recent campaign. I don't know if you saw the Billboard campaign. They've got the most, longest running team, Sydney breakfast radio team. Very careful use of words there, team, because obviously there's some solo announcers that have been on for longer. But look, I'm unsure just how many listeners will enjoy trading Olivia Dean for AC/DC at Triple M. So we'll see how that goes. But look, unfortunately, as I'm sure many would agree, Smallsy, as an amazing broadcast that he is, he just will not be able to sustain the highly loyal KJ Sydney audience. KISS listeners are still readjusting to Smallsy in the arvos and at night. So this is even more of a shock to the listener system to now have Smallsy do a marathon during the mornings, the arvos, the nights. I think that'll obviously change at some point soon, even if it's just temporarily. I mean, I can already see KISS Sydney are doing their best to minimise the blow from KJ leaving. With them still running, they've got their You Get a promo minus the KJ mention. For the interim, I think we'll see more of those style promos and tactics on KISS. They're trying to keep the KISS ship powering full steam ahead, minus the two captains. And I'd love someone after this podcast just comment or DM us. Can someone let us know when the Easter show happens in Sydney? What's happening with the Kyle and Jackie O haunted house? Are they still going to slap Smallsy all over it, or how are they going to maintain that momentum?
I totally forgot about that. The show bags as well. Wow.
Yeah. And look, we saw a similar thing happen when Kyle and Jackie O left Today FM. The station kept the same sound. It relied on the other station assets and elements to keep the familiarity going. But as we saw back then, it is impossible to achieve. Now, I'm predicting that, unfortunately, KISS Sydney, they're going to lose their number one FM spot for good. I think that'll go to Smooth Breakfast on FM. 2GB will still lead the pack overall. Now, this is only because of KISS's loss, by these other stations, not by these other stations gaining more listeners. So it's not like the KISS listeners are going to go to Smooth or 2GB. They'll go elsewhere, but it just means those lost listeners will just spread across the Sydney radio market. And it could really spell the end for the KISS 1065 powerhouse era. I mean, I can only see a small share that will obviously spread to Nova 96.9 or to Today Breakfast, keeping in mind both of them are newly formed duos. You know, Ricky, Lee, and Tim, that's minus Joel. Emma and Nath, they're minus, I've forgotten.
Jimmy.
Jimmy. Thank you. Had a brain fart there. Great shows, but they're far from that KJ chemistry factor. I mean, I really feel this is a chance that Nova Sydney should be firing on all cylinders. Go hard with their marketing, go hard on their advertising, because they are the most similar product that will be as close to the format that the KJ refugees are seeking. Lastly, I just want to say one extremely important thing to remember here is the average age of a Kyle and Jackie O listener is a lot older than the average age of a Today or a Nova listener. Add 27 years to whatever age comes to your mind. So to say that Today and Nova will immediately see mammoth growth is just not true. Lost KISS listeners, they could literally go anywhere, including talkback, the older station formats, and sadly, some will be lost to podcasts.
And looking, of course, we have Survey 1, and the last, I got to say, probably week and a half of Survey 1 was without Jackie O. Do you think we'll still see a pretty big drop in Sydney breakfast for KISS 1065 in Survey 1?
Look, for Survey 1, I don't think we'll see any impact. We really won't see the flow-on effect for some time. It's like if you go through history, when they left Today, KISS weren't number one immediately, but there was a massive drop from Today FM. And then that momentum just really grew. The difference that is a massive factor here is you don't have Kyle and Jack in the market at all. The longer that they're away from the market is really detrimental to their brand. This is allowing listeners to trial other shows. The unfortunate thing is that there's not that many established shows that are complete clones and just as good as KJ. So really, if it's like if McDonald's, if you're a fan of the Big Mac and they get rid of the Big Mac, look, the Whopper just isn't a Big Mac. You need that complete satisfaction, which unfortunately at this point in time, I don't believe the Sydney radio market is catering for that gap.
And moving over to Melbourne now, of course, that's a different story because KJ haven't done particularly similar to how they're doing in Sydney to comparing it to Melbourne. Now, looking at, of course, Smallsy's still doing Melbourne and Sydney breakfast. Do you think we'll see a new breakfast team just for KISS 1011 in Melbourne?
The term that comes to mind, I don't know if it's the perfect storm, but it's something like that. By having Dave Cameron start at ARN, I mean, what a week to arrive. Welcome to ARN. Bang. But look, he's all about not having a cookie cutter approach to the network. He's all about localizing each market. Now, it's already been half done with the network. You've seen KISS Adelaide be a KISS for Adelaide. You've seen KISS Brisbane. They're doing the KISS checkup or the check-in, where they're really trying to make it a KISS for that market. I believe that it goes without saying, Melbourne will get its own breakfast show again on KISS. It's the outlier at the moment in the network. KISS 1065, it is all about Sydney. KISS 97.3 is all about Brisbane. 102.3 Adelaide's now shaped up to be a dedicated KISS station. So I can really see Dave Cameron flicking that switch on KISS 1011, making it a station strongly focused on Melbourne. Once they recruit a local team, now it'll likely be poached from another network or a podcast, I'm predicting. I reckon we'll see a ton of more on-ground activity in KISS Melbourne. It'll be a real win for localism here. So I think Melbourne is on the winners list here. But the unfortunate fact is that we probably won't see the highly paid, extremely strong talent spearheading KISS Melbourne, because I think ARN's main focus is to throw cash into maintaining that strength and that momentum at KISS 1065, rather than to allocate, some are going to hate this, but I'm going to say the pointless resources to try and rebuild KISS 1011. I think Sydney is going to continue to be ARN's favourite child. So that's where all the resources are going to be poured. But at the same time, they do have that other little sibling in Melbourne that's there going, hello, what about us?
And
Yeah.
of course, we haven't heard much from Kyle. Now, of course, up until last night, we heard a lot from Jackie O. But Kyle has stayed mostly silent. What do you think's going to happen next for him after his 2-week suspension? Do you think he might return to Kiss for a bit, or do you think this his absence might carry on for a fair bit longer from radio?
Look, I just want to say, firstly, whatever comes next has to come fast. The sooner they can return on air in some capacity, either together or separate, the sooner their loyal followers, and they really do. That's one thing they do so well. They've got such a good brand, such a strong brand, and such dedicated P1s. They are dying to return to their normal listening patterns. So the longer the duo are off air, the more we'll see listeners trial those other shows. I could see Carl using this as an opportunity to really hone in on his passion and be free from fitting a format. We saw that kind of in a way when John Laws left 2UE, came to 2SM. He actually, I heard him say when I was working at 2SM, he loved it because he had free reign to just be himself. He didn't like the constraints of a PD above saying, say this, do it this way. I think Kyle will be the same, and I've noticed a bit with going back to Talkback, 2SM as well. Chris Smith is a very different presenter than when he was at 2GB. So I think whether it be more of a talkback style podcasting, I mean, Kyle could easily become Australia's Howard Stern or Joe Rogan, or even continue his television commitments. You know, maybe a shift on the soon to be rebranded Sky News, News 24. Because let's not forget, Kyle has had a longer lasting television career than Jackie. So this is thanks to the power of his personal brand. So it's more realistic that we could see Kyle carve a sustainable career in the future in TV outside of traditional FM radio.
And what do you think happens? Of course, Kyle and Jackie have a massive behind the scenes team. What do you think happens to some of those producers and audio designers? What do you think happens to them?
Look, I can speak firsthand here. When it first came out that Kyle and Jackie had left today, uh, ARN were on the front foot, and they had to obviously put a bid in and work out how we're going to pay for them to come across. And by doing that, it was the first round of redundancies. And I was one who was actually walked out of ARN, the North Ryde studios. I never got to meet Kyle or Jack come into the ARN business because I left by them coming. The reason I say this story is you're either going to be redeployed, or the unfortunate fact is you'll probably be out. You know, it's a commercial business. Now, this is, something we said about in our previous podcast about having that multi-skilled approach. If you can prove that you are more than just a producer, you are more than just a talent guest organizer, if you've got other things you can bring to the table, there's a better chance that those producers and that production team can be redeployed in other departments. But look, on the flip side, if all does go not in the favor of Kyle, but in the favor of ARN, and they save some money, well, then there should be some money there to say, hey, listen, we can keep you on board. Whoever goes forward in breakfast, we still need that team there. So it really comes down to the bottom line, how much they've got there and who they put in breakfast, and if they really need all those resources.
And I want to go back to something you touched on earlier. Now you have Today FM and Nova 96.9 with two newly established break teams. You got Ricky Lee and Tim, who are no strangers to Nova, and of course you have Nathan and Emma. Now Emma, of course, was at ARN on the Edge for a while before she made the jump with Mikey over to Today FM, and of course they've split up since then. But do you think that we will see a tiny bit of growth in Today FM? Of course, the Poison Chalice, since Kyle and Jackie left in 2014, they've never had any real growth. Do you think we'll see tiny rises in Nova and Today FM?
I think today they're way too young for the KISS audience.
Yeah.
There'll be a slip of people. I mean, I think that the Aussie mentality is we want to see the underdog get back up. Now that Kyle's left the radio market, come on Today, you can be the number one station. It's a very different Today FM than what it was back then. The listeners have grown, have evolved. Like I said, it's been, it's quite some time since people would even know that Kyle and Jackie O were on Today FM. So for them to just think, oh, automatically it's in the bag, it's a guaranteed done deal. It does come down to marketing, but it also strongly comes down to the product. You look at the playlist at Today and you look at the playlist at Nova, there's a lot more alignment, a lot more overlap with what Nova's playing and what KISS is playing than with Today. Today is going for that youth. The only thing that I think will actually get Today out of the ground is with Jackie. Now, this is something that I'm really strong with this prediction. So Kath O'Connor, she's recently been appointed as a board member at SCA. Kath is good friends with Gemma Fordham. Gemma Fordham is Jackie O's manager. So I believe if it hasn't already started, it will be soon. It will be inevitable that there'll be a phone call at some point trying to get Jackie to come over to Today. This will be the only way that Today can really leverage from this situation. You need to either split the duo. If Kyle is not on Kiss up against Jackie on Today, then Today will do well. If Jackie is on Today with Kyle on Kiss, well, it's like I loved it how Smallsy said it with Brooklyn. It's like when mum and dad get divorced. Mum's house or dad's house. It's this sort of that's what the Sydney listeners will probably face. It's going to be a challenge if you do have them head to head. But without Jackie popping up at Today, there is no strong succession. Like there's no guarantee that Today is going to get that audience. More chance that they'll go to Nova. But in my opinion, I actually think he's if Fitzy and Whipper were still in the market, I wonder if Nova are regretting doing that breakfast swap because really Fitzy and Whipper and Kate could have really taken that gap in the market. Being the top 40 heritage brekkie show, they were always the Samsung to the Apple, the Pepsi to the Coke. Take the leader out, you go to them. Also, given the average age of a Kyle and Jackie O listener, I really think ARN could have been thinking, oh, damn, we should have kept Jonesy and Amanda at breakfast. Because, Gold 101.7 could have also taken a few listeners there. It's just, hindsight's a great thing. In hindsight, probably shouldn't have made all those chopping and changing to brekkie teams because, like I said at the start, this is a moment many in the Sydney radio industry have been waiting for. But I don't think all the other stations have really been prepared for it. So we'll see what happens.
And if Kyle or Jackie O don't return to Kiss, who do you think would be a suitable replacement? Of course, Smallsy's filling in now, but who do you think would be a suitable replacement? I've seen some rumors, possibly Hamish and Andy or something to do with Sophie Monk. Do you think that they have any substance to those predictions?
If I were ARN management right now, I mean, look, the recent reports with Jackie, who knows which way she's going to go, but really, ARN should keep Jackie very close. I believe that, that Jackie Henderson, she could rebrand herself. Jackie Henderson doing Brekkie solo alone on Kiss, I think that would be a great call for ARN. She would be much more commercially viable to continue with the Kiss audience solo, have more of a long form interview format. I really see Jackie as like Australia's Oprah Winfrey. She really could be a powerhouse there. And I think it's in ARN's best interest to keep her at the station, for familiarity. But I really think, there's still a lot more steam in her or a lot more fuel in her tank ahead of her. The advantage for both Kyle and Jackie O, they are well behind their retirement age. So I don't think in any way, shape or form is this the last we ever hear or see of Kyle or Jackie. In what capacity, who knows? Like I said, I think Kyle could go more towards podcast, television, other formats, especially if he's already starting to bring on the threats of legal action. It's going to leave a sour taste if he either leaves or even if he remains at Kiss Breakfast. I don't feel that Smallsy is the right fit for Kiss Breakfast. I wouldn't pair Jackie with anyone, not with a Smallsy. I wouldn't pair Jackie with a Rosso. I wouldn't pair Jackie with a Bo Ryan. I really think Kiss Breakfast needs to move ahead with Jackie solo. It will save them. It will steer them in a more mature direction as well, which I think is what the Kiss brand in Sydney is ready for.
And looking to the opposite side of that prediction, do you think there's any possibility that Kyle could stay with ARN? It could be Kyle in Brooklyn or Kyle, like we could have an example like Christian O'Connell. It's just Christian O'Connell, but of course he has his producers and his newsreaders talking to him as well. Do you think we can see something like that with Kyle?
If Kyle stays at ARN, I'm just going to sit back and just enjoy watching for a few months because I just want to see the dynamics and the dust settle. There's a lot of dust that's been kicked up. In terms of partnering Kyle with anyone, if I was the person calling those shots, I would be on the phone to Sophie Monk. I think she would be a perfect fit with Kyle. and I think she's extremely talented, extremely adaptable. She would be my first point of call. And I think you want someone who complements Kyle, who is the Robin to his Batman, someone who just keeps it going in the momentum that he wants to go in. But even then, the show will still sound very different. And this will be an opportunity for Kyle or Jackie to do a brand refresh. So I think if he does return to Kiss Breakfast, I highly doubt it'll be the same type of Kiss Breakfast show that we've had in the past in Sydney.
Well, thank you so much, Peter. I think a lot of us are still shocked, and there's a lot missing to the story, from my opinion. But yeah, look, I think we'll have a lot to hear about from ARN over the next few weeks. But look, check out radiomastery.com.au, Peter's radio coaching service, and follow his Instagram, Radio Mastery, and at Peter Samios Official. Thank you so much, Peter.
Amazing. Thank you, Max. Appreciate your time.